Early Wham podcast is back, here to preview our favorite fights, favorite bets for UFC 330. 2 titles on the line. Got co-main event Mackenzie Dern, Jalin Robertson, and main event welterweight strap man Islam Makhachev, Ian Garry. Super excited for that. Recap as far as last week goes: UFC Vegas 120, 5-event win streak snapped for me there. Gamrot got absolutely steamrolled, and I mean, same to Louis Sutherland. And I don't even know what to think about that fight, man. He gets bet to over minus 200, and he was tapping before the choke was even in. That whole fight just looked honestly sketch to me. Bright spot to the night, Parlay and Miller inside the distance. Would like to preface it, made it all back in the Contender Series last night, but minus 1.94 units last week. How'd you finish up?
In the green is how I finished. 0.01 units in the positive. Had 2 units on Mateusz Gamrot, which at that point I was free rolling because I did have a parlay with Ty Miller and Alexia Dayanara, who I think both covered their price tag to win 2.01 units. And in the positive, we will take that, I guess. Looking to make a little bit more money this week, though. We start off in the welterweight division where we have the champion Islam Makhachev taking on Ian Machado Garry. Coming into this fight, I was already telling myself that there's a lot of good things on the Garry side. Stylistically that I think could work in his favor. But the more I look into it, man, I think that it's going to come down to physicality. And there's not many people in the world as physical as Islam Makhachev, especially at 155 or 170 pounds. And I think even though Ian Garry's training in the training room with Charles Oliveira getting reps, I just think he's going to feel a different type of pressure in there on Saturday. Islam knows where he can win this game, and Ian Garry, I don't love a lot of the things about his game, a lot of them outside of the octagon. Right. One of them being that he's vegan. I do think that you lose a little bit of that grit, that strength, the power that comes from eating a well-balanced diet. And I think that Islam Makhachev has got on that, primal diet. And I just think that the strength, the vitamins that he's been taking since he was 10 years old, it's going to show itself on Saturday. Ian Garry has a super long neck. I do think that Islam, once he gets him to the ground, he finds his position and he chokes the life out of him. I have the fight not going to decision and Islam Makhachev by submission is how I see this fight going. But I do think that Ian Garry will have some success for as long as he can keep it at his range and on the feet. I just don't think that that's going to be very long.
I can't disagree with Islam being the favorite here, and he probably does win the fight majority of the time. But I mean, I think both are extremely elite fighters. You look at the record, and it's like 45-2 combined record. It's favored to go the full 25. That's where we kind of disagree a little bit. I do think it goes to full 25. So it's a little bit harder for me to get north of 70% on Islam just because, the last couple at 55 looked a little bit sketch at times, and I really don't think we've seen him really tested yet at welterweight. So it's just kind of why I'm skeptical on his side of the money line. And at the same time, you kind of know how I've always felt about Ian Garry. Not a fan of a lot of stuff outside of the cage, but I think it gets baked into the line a little bit of sometimes. I think he's one of the best welterweights on the planet. I think his footwork and his fight IQ are elite. I think his cardio is elite. He's clearly the better striker here, but when I watched back the Shavkat fight, and while most people were like, oh, holy shit, he almost beat Shavkat. He was the only person that didn't get finished by Shavkat. You got to look at a lot of the minutes and the time that he gave up control in that fight and how it could replicate itself here. Islam's just a lot more intentional with his, jiu-jitsu, with his wrestling, and it's a lot better than Shavkat. Good control. And so I do see him getting his minutes here, but I look at the money line and it kind of feels like Gary's the side to me. Just stylistically, I do see how Islam could win minutes. So I'm going to attack this fight a different way. I kind of think how that is, but we'll talk about that later on here. Won't spoil it yet. Mackenzie Dern, Jalin Robertson for the flyweight strap. No. Yeah. Strawweight?
Strawweight. Yeah.
Yeah, strawweight. Mm-hmm. Man, I hate to be just super simple. And not that Jalin doesn't really deserve it or anything. She's got the most finishes, most subs by any female, but it does kind of feel a little bit handpicked to kind of let Dern have the belt for as long as possible. Clear improvement on Dern on the feet the past couple years. I think she has the advantages on the feet, and everybody knows the jiu-jitsu is world-class. Even on her back, the Verna fights, she's super active, hunting for subs, nasty elbows. Like she even does damage on bottom and wins minutes that way. And on the Roberson side, I really like watching the girl fight, man. She sticks to her game plan. She's coached by Den Thomas. Finishes girls, man. When she gets on top, she's nasty. She looks for ground and pound. I just feel like in most areas of this fight, outside of maybe like the pure wrestling, she's the inferior fighter here. So I'm on the Dern side. As the line's coming down, I feel like I'm probably going to have some action on Dern this week. It feels like a really good spot for her, man. What's your thoughts here on the co-main?
Yeah, so I end up finding myself on the same spots. The best attributes of Jillian Robertson's game actually play into Mackenzie Dern's. I'd look back at the Amanda Lemos fight where Jillian Robertson has gotten swept multiple times in that fight, just being a little bit too aggressive and not really knowing how to control on the ground when she's going up for offensive pressure. If he does get Mackenzie Dern to the ground, I just think that those spots are going to really be capitalized on by the Dern side. She's a jiu-jitsu specialist, and I do think that this is just one of those fights where it plays right into her wheelhouse. And even on the feet, Mackenzie Dern, extremely tough. Even if Jillian does get into some of those dangerous spots where she gets hit a few times, she's not going to give up on herself. She'll find those opportunities. And I do think that she wins probably on the judges' scorecards, but I would not be surprised if they play around enough on the ground if she finds a submission. And even though it's a little green, she has the luxury of being able to overextend on a lot of her shots because she's not afraid of getting taken down. And I think that all of that will come together in her getting her hand raised on Saturday night. And to your point, I do think that this is a setup fight coming from the UFC. You know, there's a lot of girls that I think could beat Mackenzie Dern. And Jillian Robertson just isn't that person. So we get a little bit longer of Mackenzie Dern holding up the belt and making a good look for the UFC. So, yeah, give me Dern on Saturday. The line, like if it gets into the minus 190s, I'll certainly be on it. I'll probably even find myself on it at minus 210 that it's at right now.
Right.
Moving on to, it's now the featured bout of the card, but before the Charles Johnson-Ochoa fight fell through, this was my fight of the night. I think it's deserving of being the featured bout on the main card. Jalin Turner taking on Kaue Fernandez. I think that there's a lot of ways that this fight plays out. I think that the line where it currently sits is, you know, we're close to pick'ems, you know, Jalin Turner with a being a slight favorite. If this fight stays on the feet and Kaue can land some of the leg kicks that we've seen, there's potential for him to injure Jalin early, and we've seen Jalin multiple times quit on himself in the fight. That being said, when Jalin Turner isn't facing a wrestling threat, he is the longer, faster, more athletic, harder hitting fighter like 95% of the time that he's in the octagon. And I do think that that's going to favor him here against Kaue Fernandez, who isn't going to be looking for that takedown. Jalin Turner, for at least the first 7 minutes, is going to be just a lot faster, a lot longer. I think he'll beat Kaue to the punch. But that being said, if he does dance around on the feet enough, I think that Kaue has the weapons to slowly but surely chop down Jalin Turner. And ultimately, I don't see this fight getting to the scorecards, but I do think that it's more likely that Jalin Turner finds that finish, especially early. So I will be on the Jalin Turner side, but probably a few different ways that I'd approach this fight other than just picking a side.
Yeah, man. Love some violence there. Taking Neil Magny, Ramiz Brahimaj at 170. I love these kind of fights where one of these guys have that finish upside early and the other guy's historically known for putting that cardio and that pace on guys and coming back late. And I think that's exactly how this fight could play out here. You know, Ramiz is a guy who's historically been finish or bust. All 13 of his wins are by finish. He's 0-5 when the fights hit the scorecards. And look through his history of wins, man, 11 of the 13 are in round one. You know, it's as finish or bust as anybody in the UFC. Nasty submissions, loves the guillotine, and submission defense for Neil Magny has just always been an issue throughout the career. He's got 7 submission losses, and even as of late, durability in general's hit a big decline for him. But dude, who Magny's losing to is just, I mean, it's the elite at 170. It's title challengers, champs. Like, if Ramiz does not get this done in the first 6-7 minutes of the fight, how does it start to look, man? I kind of feel like it starts to look like some of those Magny fights that get really hairy, where he draws you into his style of fighting, puts the pace on you, clinching, a lot of cage work, and use that gas tank to come back on guys. And I kind of feel like that's live to happen on Saturday. So chalk for me on somebody who's never hit a third round and one is a no-go. I do feel like he has sub props and early sub props that could potentially be live, but I'm ready to click on Magny live here come Saturday if we hit round 2 and he's still there. So I love this fight, man, and hoping Magny can cash me one good ticket live on his way out, 39 years old or something.
Yeah, I like that look a lot. For my underdog, struggled really hard trying to find an actual money line that I liked with a plus money sign in front of it. So I did end up falling on a total. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the podcast, but the under in the main event, I couldn't agree more that these are both elite level fighters, but I think it would be not in Islam Makhachev's best interest to draw this fight out. And I think that he knows it. I do expect him to go to the ground early. GARRY, really fluent off his back on the ground, but I do think that the strength is just going to be the biggest determining factor. Fight ends inside the distance is sitting a little bit above plus 120. And I do expect Islam Makhachev to win via submission. There's opportunities, what we've seen in the past. It's not shown itself in a decade, but Islam has been touched before, and I do think that GARRY might be one of the best strikers, giving him a different look, being as long and as tall as he is. And there's potential that he beats him to the punch and really starts to wear on him as the fight gets drawn out, if it does get drawn out. So I do not expect this fight to hit the judges' scorecards. And I know we kind of disagree on that, which is not great, but it makes more podcast. So yeah, give me the under there.
Hey, I'm taking a prop here plus money. Couldn't really find a dog for myself, and it's been hard to dog hunt lately. I saw someone on Twitter that said favorites are something like 35-4 over the last 3 cards, and I would like to say I gave out Tofik Musayev as one of those 4 dogs that cashed over the podcast, just couldn't play him. And I feel like this pay-per-view set up like a lot of pay-per-views, not a lot of live dogs here, and so underdog plus money side for me is Mackenzie Dern by decision. Plus 180 is what I'm seeing out there. If you've got FanDuel, you can get 4 or 5 decision. It's still plus 120 if you want the championship rounds there. It's a girl fight, man. It's probably going to go the full 25 minutes. It's favored to go. And Mackenzie Dern's the side I'm super confident in, and you're getting almost 2-1 there. Dern's never won by TKO. All 8 finishes are by submission. And you've got to go back almost a decade. It's like 8.5 years since the last time Jillian's been submitted, and it was by Mara Buena Silva, like a girl who's fought at 135 pounds, much bigger girl, and a girl in Jillian who prides herself on the ground game. I could just see her, while being in inferior positions, just not overexposing yourself and just staying safe, not being submitted, but definitely not doing enough to win anything on the scorecard. So I like Mackenzie Dern. I like Mackenzie Dern by decision. You can get that for plus 180, maybe even better on some other books. And I think it's a good plus money look this week.
For our parlay piece, I'm going to be taking, it's a 2-1. If you want a really juicy parlay piece, Esteban Ribovics. But if you want to look at a different option, there are some under minus 200s Esteban inside the distance. And I do think that that's an excellent parlay piece. Edson Barbosa has been giving us highlights for, well over a decade at this point. But he has certainly hit the point in his career where he's a stepping stone for the division. Esteban Ribovics does not stop moving forward. Fighting off the back foot isn't necessarily the way that Edson Barbosa likes to move, and we've seen him crumble in the past under pressure. And I just think that Esteban Ribovics, even if Barbosa lands some of the shots that we've seen put out fighters in the past, Ribovics has the type of chin that he'll just eat it and walk through. And I think that that's going to be demoralizing as the fight moves on for Edson Barbosa, and he'll eventually look for the way out. So give me the Ribovics inside the distance, or just Ribovics straight. Minus 650 is a tough pill to swallow, but I do think he gets his hand raised on Saturday no matter what.
Yeah, I like it too, man. I'm going Dante Johnson. I think I tracked him at minus 240. He's up into minus 280s, maybe 290 at places. But I think he's deserving of a massive favorite. And I think a lot of people being unimpressed with him in the Brundage fight where he swung big early and overextended it, ended up on his back all of round one, just made that fight closer than it needed to be. I think that's why he was at minus 350 to begin with. But once people run the tape and look at it, there's a reason the line's moving. And I think Dante Johnson's a good parlay piece, man. I think he gets back to the finishing ways. He's massive speed, power, athleticism advantage. I think he's strong enough to wind up on top. McConaughey's just a guy who's not dangerous, throws low volume, and it's got a super suspect chin that I think is going to get cracked. So Dante by TKO is like plus 110, and I think that's an incredible bet. But anything under minus 300, I think you're looking at a really good parlay piece in Dante Johnson.
For my best bet, kind of weird hearing it come out of my mouth, but Tresean Gore is going to be my best bet at minus 115. I think it's a perfect spot because Vicente Luque is coming off of that Darce victory over Kelvin Gastelum. Looks great on paper. You look at the place that Kelvin Gastelum's in currently, I think it's a great spot for Tresean Gore to kind of show he's the new age fighter. Not that Tresean Gore is going to be, honestly, even cracking top 10 ever in his career, but he's somebody who doesn't give up on himself. I've seen him take massive beatings. He has a sneaky submission game himself, and he hits hard, and Vicente Luque, if he doesn't find that early submission, we've seen time and time again now him kind of look to give up on himself if he doesn't find that early success. So yeah, I think Tresean Gore, even though he's not the most skilled fighter in the world, I think we're getting an excellent price tag on him at near pick'ems. Minus 112 is hanging around in most books right now. I think that's an excellent spot. I'll probably have at least a couple units on that, honestly. And it's more of just a Vicente Luque fade than it is me having total confidence in somebody like Tresean Gore.
Yeah, not many people still hanging around fighting have had a brain bleed. And he's up at 185. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I like Gore too. I contemplated whether I was going to make this my best bet, but DraftKings is a pretty widely available book, so we'll further the disagreement here on the pod. I'm taking the Ian Garry point spread. Told you it was minus 145. I didn't play it till it was minus 160, but man, you can alter that point spread up to Ian Garry at plus 13.5. That's pretty wild for a fight that is favored to go 25 minutes. For Ian to cash this bet, he has to win one single round on one single judge's scorecard. We're not talking a unanimous round on all judges' scorecards. One round, one judge's scorecard. We could go to decision in here 50-45, 50-45, and 49-46, and we cash this bet. So in a time where grappling is not extremely rewarded, where a fight where I saw Islam honestly do fuck all on the mat with Jack Della, Ian is better than that. Ian could win a couple minutes on the feet here, and barring he doesn't get finished, which has never happened before, I think he's extremely live to still a judge's round here with some striking. So at minus 160, I think Ian Garry's not necessarily a live underdog, but live to make the minutes close at times.
So moving on to our quick pick section of the night, we start off in the 170-pound division. Jeremiah Wells taking MAKHACHEV Oral By. I think Oral By is the favorite for a reason. I do think he's, over a decade younger. Is into the minus 1,000s now, and I think it's for good reason. Jeremiah Wells, super strong, super athletic for his age, but I think he's just got a little bit too much here on Saturday. Give me MAKHACHEV Oral By.
Yeah, I bet Wells against Themba Gorimbo, and that was sketch. Taking down weight too many times to be fighting a guy like Oral By. So I don't know if he finishes. Probably does. It's just hard to do anything with minus 1,000, minus 1,100. Oral By, clear side for me, though. Magny, Ramiz, Brahimaj, that was my fight of the night. You're looking at Ramiz early. Interesting sub props, but, man, my finger's going to be hovering over that Neil Magny live bet come round two. I'll take Neil Magny.
I'll take Ramiz Brahimaj. I do think that he finds that submission. Not much conviction on that one. Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando. I think Lucas is going to be the much faster fighter here. I also have him in the fantasy league. So
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Lucas Fernandez this Saturday, although hate the price tag. Would never lay that price tag, but I do think he gets the job done.
Hey, there's another plus money knockout hanging out in that fight for Lucas Fernando, and I think it's incredibly live. I think he's a much better fighter here and a much better striker. I think the KO is on the table for Lucas. Vicente Luque, Tresean Gore. It's hard to back Gore. It's hard to back Gore at chalk. I think I'm more confident saying like a plus 200 fight ends by sub or just a violence parlay piece for something here. I'll side with Gore, but again, I think there's better ways to play it than the money line for Gore.
No, I think Gore could win on the judges' scorecards if Vicente is tough enough to outlast the 3 rounds. I think Gore could submit him, and I think the most likely path is Gore knocking him out. So I have to take the money line because he covers all of those win conditions. So, yeah, give me Tresean Gore for my best bet of the night. I think I'll have a few units on him.
Dude, that may be plus money.
McConaughey.
That may be plus money.
What was that?
I said that may be plus money by fight time. It's
I'm really hoping so.
It's right now.
And again, it's all because of that Kelvin Gastelum fight. Like, he loses the Kelvin Gastelum fight, I think Tresean Gore is a minus 190 here, you know? So, yeah, give me Gore for sure. Staying in the division, Dante Johnson versus Eric McConaughey. Dante Johnson, I don't think he's good as his record shows, but I do think that he wins this fight. Eric McConaughey is just not the guy to do it. He's kind of lucky to still be in the UFC, if you ask me. Dante Johnson, not the future, but he is going to get his hand raised on Saturday.
Yeah, I like Dante Johnson here, and Dante by TKO. Charles Johnson, Eduardo Chapelin. Chapelin stepping on short notice. I liked this guy on Tough, man. He just drew I just told you before the fight started. Joseph Morales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a hard draw, man. If he had been on the other side of the bracket, he might have been meeting Morales in the finals. I like Chapelin. I think Chapelin's a way better striker. And I've always been a Charles Johnson guy, but I just think we're seeing a clear decline. And the way you got buzzed and all over the cage by Alex Perez, like Chapelin's much more dangerous on the feet. So I hate to say it, but I think I'm going to go with Eduardo Chapelin, man.
I find myself on the other side. I believe this fight's at 130 pounds, even though it's not showing it. And that's not because Charles Johnson was doing that. That's because Chapelin's taking this on short notice against somebody who's been if anything, a great gatekeeper in the 125-pound division. On the best night, I think he could beat a champion. And on his worst nights, I think bottom of the barrel guys can catch him or at least beat him in a split decision. For this price, though, I do think I find myself on Charles Johnson. He never makes his fights super clean.
Yeah.
So I think Charles Johnson 29-28 is how I see this going, and Chapelin making a good account of himself and getting re-signed to fight at least a couple more fights in the UFC. Just hopefully he gets better matchups than somebody like Charles Johnson, who is a veteran, a UFC veteran at this point.
Right.
Moving up to the welterweight division, Chidi Njokuani taking on Joel Alvarez. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge Joel Alvarez guy. I think he does have a sneaky submission game, and I like watching him fight. But his best attribute his entire UFC career has been his size, and he doesn't have that here at 170 pounds. Yes, I think he probably wins this fight, which is why I didn't pick Chidi as my underdog of the night. But that being said, Joel's time is coming, and I think we're going to get a great price tag to fade him. Just not sure if it's Chidi Njokuani, who's really shown some declines and is, approaching 40 years old. So give me Joel Alvarez. I don't love it, though.
Yeah, man, these guys used to fight 30 pounds apart 2 years ago. It's a little weird. He's got a sneaky sub game. Chidi's got nothing off his back. He's got pretty bad sub defense. And his cardio has been a little bit better at 170 than I expected it to be because he looks like he cuts a lot of weight, fights through it. But, yeah, I just kind of have to side with the Joel Alvarez. Bit younger, bit fresher here, man. Kicking off the main card, I think Esteban Ribovics knocks out Edson Barboza. I'm with you there, man. It's kind of sad for a legend like this who's probably a fight or two away from being out of the UFC, having to fight just a young stud like this. I think Ribovics could put him in a coffin on Saturday.
I find myself on the exact same side and in the exact same way. Moving up to the middleweight division, Mansour Abdul Malik taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. I do think that this is the type of fighter that Mansour Abdul Malik just bodies. Dustin Stoltzfus is pretty good, but it really, none of what Dustin Stoltzfus does is going to work against Mansour Abdul Malik. Yeah. I do think that Mansour gets on top of him and just beats him up, submits him, whatever he wants to do. Once he's on top, I think it's his fight.
Yeah, Mansour's the second leg to my parlay with Dante Johnson this week for 2 units. I'm with you, man. I just feel like he's way too physically imposing for Dustin Stoltzfus and just too young, too athletic, and Mansour's gonna probably finish him. Jalin Turner, Kaue Fernandez, like you said, you broke it down. This should have been up on the main card all along. If Jalen's head screwed on right, man, coming in on Saturday, I mean, the record's not pretty, but he's fought some really, really good guys at the top of the toughest division. And, Kaue's landed some leg kicks and, debilitated some guys that are nowhere on the level of Jalin Turner. So I think there's a world where Jalin Turner makes it look easy, I definitely think if Kaue wins, he's going to survive an early storm. I'm on the Jalin Turner side, though.
I find myself on the Jalin Turner side as well. I do think that he's approaching over 30, or he is over 30 years old now. I'd love to see him at 170. Like, I think a Jalin Turner, what's his name? Joel Alvarez fight, smacks, dude. I think that that's an excellent fight. And both guys that I think hung around at 155 pounds for too long of their career. Yep. I do think that Jalin Turner gets it done here, but past the second round, if Jalen's won a couple of those rounds and I even see the slightest bit of slowing down, I'd be taking Kaue Fernandez on that live line for sure. Moving up for the strawweight championship, Mackenzie Dern taking on Jillian Robertson. Give me Mackenzie Dern here to get her hand raised. I bet that it's going to be a decision win, but I wouldn't be surprised if she finds the submission here, considering how long I expect them to be on the ground.
Yeah, I hope not, because I'm looking at the Mackenzie Dern by decision. Maybe I take 4 or 5 in case it, gets a little bit hairier than championship rounds. But at the end of the day, I do feel pretty confident on the Dern side. And as the line continues to move in my favor, I'll probably find myself on Mackenzie Dern. And welterweight strap up for grabs in the main event. Islam Makhachev, Ian Garry broke this fight down. Best bet, Ian Garry by point spread. Again, no shock if Islam wins, but I do think at some point Ian Garry's done enough to steal some scorecards here, and so I had to take that point spread. I'm going to go Makhachev as who I think is going to win this fight, though.
Yeah, I think Makhachev's physicality will shine here. Give me Islam Makhachev by submission.
Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. That's all 12 fights going down for UFC 330. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back next week. Got the Contender Series on Tuesday, and then Anthony Hernandez, Gregory Rodriguez on Saturday. Y'all take it easy.
Peace.